Chair Roach, how about CS for House Bill 1647? Please, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. CS for House Bill 1647 allows developers of properties and owners of properties that intersect with the coastal construction control line to demolish their existing structures if they are non-conforming according to FEMA guidelines, have been deemed unsafe by local building officials, or have been ordered to be demolished. Once they are demolished, the bill would authorize their replacement with new resilient structures that are to be built to current building code and FEMA standards. That is the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Questions on?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How does this impact Miami Beach Art Deco buildings?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question. So the bill does have some specific carve-outs, and one of those carve-outs is that any building within historic districts that were listed in the National Register of Historic Districts would be exempt from this requirement. That would include the Miami Beach Art Deco District, which was listed on the National Historic Register in 1979.
Additional questions, members? You recognize.
Thank you, Chair. If something was added to the historical preservation, after this bill, is that still exempt?
You recognize.
Yeah, that's the question.
Thank you for the question, Rep. Escamani. The bill provides that the historic districts that were listed in the National Register before January 1st, 2000 are exempt or carved out. It has a couple of additional carve-outs, which I'll go through. Any structure, any single-family home is exempt, and any structure on barrier islands with less than 10,000 people that have at least 6 city blocks that are not within high hazard flood zones. And let me do this. This may help answer your questions. Let me tell you, as drafted, the bill would not apply to these municipalities. Let me read those for you. St. Augustine, Key West, Town of Palm Beach, contributing buildings along Ocean Drive and Miami Beach, inland municipalities, Tampa, Pensacola, West Palm Beach, and Panama City. Those are carved out under this draft of the bill.
Additional questions, members? Follow.
Thank you so much. That's a really great clarity, Rep. Roach. I guess you're giving us the good explanation of what isn't included, but I guess what is included and what's the ultimate goal here?
You're recognized.
Who wants this bill and why?
Thank you. Yeah, the goal is, and this has happened in my community in Fort Myers after Hurricane Ian, the goal is to allow business owners to tear down a structure that is currently not conforming to FEMA flood standards and rebuild that to current code. And what we have seen is that some local historic boards and districts are sort of weaponizing this process by putting requirements that are requiring owners of these buildings to build them back to the same specification which they were before, which has two effects. It virtually renders them uninsurable or prohibitively expensive to insure, and then it guarantees that the next time a storm comes along, that building will be demolished again. And the effect is that these buildings are just laying fallow. The business owners have decided it's not worth their time and expense to rebuild it to these specifications because they can't afford to assure it, or it's going to get washed away in the next storm. So it's kind of leading to blight, which I think has a lot of additional ancillary impacts on a municipality's tax revenue, on attainable housing space, and on and on. So that's the purpose of the bill and the problem that I'm seeking to correct.
Additional questions? We're in public testimony. Joe Saunders. Representative Bartleman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Representative Roach, how come you speak about certain designations, but you're actually leaving out locally designated historic buildings? Why did you do that?
Yeah, that was deliberate. And look, I think that, as I said before, some of these local designations, I would say this. Look, I think there's a big difference between something that is nostalgic and something that is historic. And I think that some of the local zoning boards have gone too far and have essentially made it impossible for business owners to demolish these structures that no longer have value and rebuild them with something that's current and modernized. I just think it's become punitive.
Additional questions? We're in public testimony. We're going to limit public testimony to 30 seconds. Joe Saunders is an opponent. You're recognized. On deck, Melissa Wiley. You recognize, Mr. Saunders.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chair Roach. I rise with concerns. This bill is in the Senate been discussed to be about safety, amongst other issues Rep. Roach has raised, but I believe that this bill inadvertently creates safety issues rather than solving them. First, the bill is drafted triggers a preemption of local control when a building is deemed, quote, unsafe by a local building official. We should be very careful about incentivizing local governments to obfuscate or, at worst, withhold from identifying clear safety code violations. And two, I remain very concerned with how this bill incentivizes a developer or a development owner to demolish through neglect, to allow a property to decay or move into disrepair for the purpose
45
of
seconds.
eventually
Please land the
meeting
plane.
the criteria for this preemption.
Melissa
Mr.
Wiley,
Chair.
Florida Trust for Historic Preservation is an opponent. 30 seconds. On deck, Danielle Seraldo.
Thank you. I'll be very quick. My name is Melissa Wiley from the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting me speak, and thank you to the sponsor for bringing forth this bill. And for your leadership this session. There has been some big amendments that have been added and changes to this bill from last year so we can protect our historic places and protect our citizens. But I'm speaking today because I am sharing the concerns of our stakeholders that without amendment, this bill would allow unnecessary demolition of historic places. And we hope we can continue to work with the sponsor to make these amendments that would address these concerns throughout the state of Florida.
You can bring it
Thank
up
you.
to Lynn. Thank you so much. Danielle Seraldo, Miami Design Preservation League. You're recognized. Daniel Seraldo, you're on deck.
Thank you so much, Representatives. Great to be here. Daniel Seraldo from Miami Beach. I know I only have 30 seconds, and this is a major impact to our city, so happy to answer questions. What I will say is I want to thank the sponsor. We spoke earlier that he is open to considering our amendment. Our big issue is the definition of non-conforming says if it's non-conforming to new construction, not to FEMA. So FEMA allows historic buildings to be renovated and not lifted in the air. We want to make sure that that non-conforming is removed because that would redline all of our coastal, and it was mentioned Palm Beach wouldn't be impacted. It
Daniel
definitely is.
Seraldo, Miami Design
Happy to answer
Preservation
any
League. You're
questions. Thank you.
recognized. There's an opponent. Kimberly Dinkins, Thousand Friends of Florida, is waiving in opposition. Lena Juarez, City of St. Augustine, is waiving in support. Members who are in debate as their debate. You're recognized to close. Having waived closed, Ms. Lexi, please call the roll.
Representatives Alvarez? Yes. Bartleman? No. Black?
Yes.
Buchanan? Yes. Posada Cabrera? Yes. Caruso?
Yes.
Casello?
Yes.
Escamani?
No.
Fabricio? Gant? Griffiths?
Yes.
Holcomb?
Yes.
Mooney? Persons Malika?
Yes.
Horace?
Yes.
Rayner? No. Roach?
Yes.
Robinson?
No.
Roth?
Yes.
Temple?
Yes.
Chair McClure.
Yes, congratulations by your vote. Please report. CS for HB 1647 reported favorably. Next up,